Nation mondiale, pas à la bouille des volets, piller des volets. Lundi, pas visite, on connaît, la médecine internationale, ça met col sous potin. Yo fait réunion, yo parlé, yo annoncé. Devant vers champagne, bon divin, qu'importe, c'est la sacralité. Les peuples en bazam, tout pays, tout côté. Moi, m'étant des autres cap analysé, l'aile pas concerné. L'aile pas concerné. Pour ça, mon bable étendé, c'est une vérité liée. Réactionner sous-développé, au sapi danger. L'intérêt au menacé, c'est yo toujours élé.
Okay, bonjour tout le monde, sac passé. Hello, greetings everyone. This is Dr. Lou, Dr. Celucien Joseph. I'm the host of Haiti Then and Now, the editor for our amazing series that's been going on for the past 2 years. Now, we also have an exciting, let me make this announcement to the viewers or audience of Haiti Then Now. I would like to announce the amazing Center for Faith, Reason, and Dialogue, where we talk about religion, culture, the intersection of religion, culture, and history of ideas. So it's a pleasure to have a distinguished guest, Professor, Dr. PhD, Vodou scholar, the amazing Dr. Eziaku Nwokocha.
Yes.
Yes. Sac passé.
Napole.
Wow. It's such a pleasure to have you. I love your book. This is such an amazing book. So yeah, let's put them
I
up.
love it too.
Let's do it. I'll tell you what.
Tell me what. Talk to me nice.
This book is groundbreaking. And I'm going to tell you why. 2 reasons. Not because I like you already. Okay.
I mean, that's not that hard. That's
yeah. So this book is distinctive in many regards. For many years, I've read like, not to exaggerate, everything that has been written in Vodou, especially in the English language. We have not had a monograph, a book that is well written. Some parts are poetic. Okay, because I love good writing. Okay, I'm a writer. I teach writing. You know, I have a PhD in English literature, so I love good writing. But this book investigates fashion and Haitian Vodou. We have never seen anything like this, right? You know, Vodou aesthetic, not just the dance, but how the people dress, the relationship between, you know, Vodou fashion, spirit possession, intimacy, sexuality, sex, mes amis.
Mes amis.
Yeah. Woo. So people, look, go get this book. Vodou and Vogue, Fashion and Black Divinities in Haiti in the United States.
Yeah,
it's published this year by the University of North Carolina Press. And the book has been endorsed by, I see one of my friends there, Diane Stewart, who teaches at Emory University. And there's, of course, the great Patrick Belgad Smith, another friend of mine, Ngo Asogwe. Patrick is such a fantastic, amazing guy. And of course, there's Ruth Lee Castleberry, who also endorsed Vodou and Vogue. Now, we're going to have to translate this book in French, okay? We're going to have to. We're going to have to translate this book. Yeah.
No, it has to.
Look.
Well, most importantly, Haitian Creole.
Haitian Creole,
and
exactly.
Haitian Creole first.
Yes.
First, and then French.
I agree. Let's
Yes.
get it started. Let's get started. Let's get in touch with some great publishers to get this book in the hands of the common people, not only in Haiti, also in the Haitian diaspora.
Yeah.
So this is amazing. So, how's the weather in Miami?
Miami is nice. I'm not complaining. You see the glow? You see the glow?
I can see that.
I was people don't know this now, but I was telling Celucien that you can't talk about fashion and clothing and come in looking like a bum. So I have to make sure I'm up. But Miami does help with the weather. It's always sunny. I mean, then there's thunderstorms and climate change, but it's nice right now. I'm not complaining.
This is great. Yeah, this is great. Yeah. This is better than Houston where I am. It's been, oh my gosh, for the past 2 months, 100 degrees, and it's humid, it's dry. Look, we do not have those amazing beaches that you have in Miami, South Beach, or you do have options. Even if you don't want to go to the beach in Miami, you can always go to Fort Lauderdale. You can go to Hollywood Beach,
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's funny because because I just entered into my second year, but during my first year when I was finishing the book and finished the production, I didn't have as much time to go to the beach. But I was telling people how I was doing spiritual work in the beach and doing research with people that practitioners on the beach, but I never fully submerged myself in the beach until July when one of my homegirls came down from Philadelphia. So I feel like I was missing out on South Beach could be there, but if you're so busy, you don't take the time, you can miss it. Or if you're just saying, oh, I'm doing research, but you can miss it. So this year, now that the book is out, I'm planning on making sure that, at least once or twice a week, I can put myself in there, in the waters.
You deserve it. You deserve it.
Thank you.
Go for it. After all, you have written a groundbreaking, well-researched, well-written book. So you deserve to spend your days, your nights at the beach.
I appreciate that. And I will always toot my own horn. I'm Nigerian. So Eziaku Nwokocha is Nigerian. I'm Igbo. Okay. So I will always toot my own horn. So I'm going to just tell folks that there is some flex. When you said it's groundbreaking, it is. Not only I'm the first Nigerian American to write about Haitian religion. I am the second person to write in terms of the American Academy of Research, second person to write a monograph Haitian Vodou practitioner. The first person was Mama Lola, or Kara McCarthy Brown, the late Kara McCarthy Brown, Mama Lola. And so to be the second, and her book was written in 1991. So to be the second in this 2023, it really shows how we still have more work to do to talk about Vodou in such an intellectual and generative way. So I'm excited about my own book, and I'm excited about the new scholarships that are coming out. And it was a way for me to think about just the beauty of the African diaspora, and especially for me being first gen, I was Haiti has a place in my heart because I've been to Nigeria before as a Nigerian. So Haiti was my second country outside the US. And so it was funny, Celucien, you probably like this. When I went there my first time, that was in 2009, through shout out to Ronald E. McNair Scholars. So they helped fund my trip as an undergrad. And I looked around, you get off the Tucson Louverture Airport, you get out, the smell, the people, the hustle and bustle. I was like, this is African. This is very African. I was like, y'all are hella Nigerian. And the people they look like my cousins. They look like my brothers and sisters. I was like, yo, this is scary. So it's one thing to do research. It's another thing to actually be there and like see folks and see people. So I'm very fortunate and very happy that I had the opportunity to go back and forth between Haiti and look at the diaspora, go between Montreal, of course, Miami, Boston, New Jersey, New York, California, just to name a few, you know.
Wow,
so,
this is exciting.
Yeah.
So I like the way you introduced yourself in the book. In fact, many years ago, about 15, 16 years ago, when I used to live in Fort Worth, in Texas, when I was going to that grad school at UT Dallas, my neighbor was from Nigeria. And then one day he asked me, my nickname is Lou, so people call me Dr. Lou. He said, he didn't know if I was, if I was from Haiti. He said to me, when was the last time you've been home? And then I stopped, I took a pause, right? A short pause. And he said, when was the last time you've been to Nigeria, man? Tell me.
He's like, yes, I know you're Haitian. But when was the last time? Oh, he didn't know you're Haitian by that time. So, but he's like, when are you going home? Stop playing with us.
Yeah, interestingly.
That's funny.
I said, dude, I'm from Haiti. He said, no, you're from Nigeria. Anyway, I like the connection, the Haitian Nigerian connection is strong.
Oh, yeah.
As we know, our people, the Haitian people, their ancestors are from Nigeria, Ghana, Cameroon, Senegal, Benin, the birthplace of Vodou.
Congo, Angola.
Oh, Angola. Yes. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
It's interesting.
No, yeah.
Tell me, tell us a little bit about yourself. Let's say your background, education, upbringing, connection to Haiti.
Yeah. I said I was Nigerian American. I'm an athlete. I think it's always important for people to know when we think about performativity and we think about embodiment. Sports and movement has been very, very helpful, especially for me being in the field. I'm a certified personal trainer. I think it's important for academics to have other things other than just academia. Because again, I'm thinking about our mind and our body. Like, again, Vodou is all about the multiple connections of like the whole self. And I think that making sure that I was working out and staying mentally prepared helped me with my ethnographic methods, as well as just the fatigue that can happen when you're in those ceremonies for sometimes 4 hours, and then the most is like 24 hours. We're just up all night. So again, when I say my sports, I really mean it. I really I love like moving and working out. I even taught a spin class back in Philadelphia before I moved to Miami.
Because you went to Temple.
No,
University.
I went to Penn. I went to University of
Penn.
Penn.
Yeah, I meant to say yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Keep talking.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. No, and no, it's cool because I know they're both in Philadelphia. So yeah. But if you talk to this person, you can be like, where are the Ivies? I'm like, yes, but I could see that. So in terms of my relationship to Haiti, another thing we should know about me is that Nigerian family of 7 kids, mom and dad, and also my aunt also lived with us, has been with us for now 15-20 years now. And it's just what I loved about being in California. I don't know if I mentioned this before, but I'm from California, is the fact that there was a lot of first-gen Californians that were a lot of, in the Bay Area, as well as Northern and Southern California. So there's Nigerians have taken over. You said you're in Houston, right?
Oh yeah.
So come on. Now
The
Houston is like,
largest, in fact, the largest
oh yeah.
diaspora group, I mean, people from ethnic group Black diaspora, right?
Yeah.
It's from Nigeria, right
Yeah.
here in Houston.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know how like Miami is like there's a lot of Haitians, a big Haitian
Yes.
Nigerians in Houston, like it's a big
Yeah.
population. California holds its own too. So
Yes.
so what was cool about that is that growing up, being first gen, and seeing like this multiple like identities of being American and Nigerian. For me, I was also we were a big Christian. We had a big Christian background, and as I say Christian background, we were also African. So, and there is, I would say we're Christian, but Christian plus, because my parents would do a lot of libations, call on our ancestors. And so when I was growing up, I was very interested in that other part, other than just learning about Jesus Christ. And then, you know, my dad will always tell me, he's like, Eziaku, it's just tradition. That's, you know, don't worry about it. But I'm like, I would like to know. So there was a moment that it was a bit frustrating. And I hope that more parents get to talk about Vodou, get to talk about African indigenous religions to their children, because there are people like me that actually want to study, teach, and want to talk about these religious traditions and look how the people look like me, you know? So that was something that I was very interested in. And I didn't get a chance to take any Black religions or religions in the African diaspora until I went to college. And I took this one class in my junior year called African diasporic religions. Now, you might find this interesting.
Yes.
When I was there, when I was taking the class, I knew, like, you know how everyone has like these moments, these aha moments. So first moment was, I knew I wanted to be a Black studies, have a major in Black studies. So I came in as a pre-pharmacist.
Wow.
Like, so, you know, Nigerians. So you're either a doctor, lawyer, engineer, or failure.
Just like Haitians, doctors, lawyers.
So Gina Yashere was right. She was talking about that in one of her comedies. It's true. So I came in as pre-pharmacy. And then, but when I took classes on like Black studies and sociology, I was like, this is fun. I'm actually enjoying this. So I remember I told my father, like, oh, Dad, I want to do Black studies. And my dad was like, Black studies? Why do you want to do that? Don't you know you're Black? And I'm like, yes, I know I'm Black, but it's important for us to know our history and the contemporary moments of what does it mean to be Black in the United States and Black in the diaspora. So I always think it, like, whoever is listening to this, that we need to get hungry about our own history, because we see what's happening in many parts of the South. That's also happening in the North, and also with the Supreme Court about thinking about diversity and equity. Like, our stories are very important, and it's important for us to have those conversations. So anyways, my dad was like mad, but I took this class because I was like, it's my degree, I can do whatever I want. And I took this class on African diasporic religions. And I kid you not, when I was learning about Cuban Santeria, and I was learning about Brazilian candomblé, when it came to Haiti, there was a light bulb, this metaphysical light bulb that came in.
Wow. And
the light bulb came from multiple reasons. One, Haiti just felt right. That's just plain and simple. But another thing is, as a Nigerian American that knows, so when we think about like the different types of influences in these African diasporic religions, Yoruba religious, Nigerian Yoruba religious traditions have a really dominant hold on these Afro diasporic religions like Cuban Santeria, as well as Brazilian candomblé. But when I was thinking about Haiti had nations.
Oh yeah.
And it's not to say that other places don't have nations. I don't want to make sure I say that, but like, you know, Haiti has nations, and it's defined as they talk about this. And also, last thing I want to make sure I say, there are other people that make up Brazilian candomblé and Santeria. We know this. Let me get to the point about Haiti. So there were distinct nations that Haiti has. And, you know, there's from people from the Congo, people from Benin, the Rada, the Petwo, the Rada nations. And they even had the Igbo nations.
Yes.
So when I learned that there were Igbos in Haiti, and there's a distinct way to treat and think about Igbo ancestry and those indigenous deities, I was like, this is my shit. This is it. This is it.
That's it.
So yeah, go ahead. What were you gonna say?
Yeah, Haiti embodies. I'm telling you. I mean, in terms of different ethnic groups.
Yeah.
From the motherland, really, it's Haiti. That's where you go.
Yeah. It's very diverse. It's very diverse. And it's very celebrated.
Exactly.
And what was cool about going to Haiti is that when I told people I was Igbo, people were like celebrating, like singing the song like Igbo Lele. And then there's like a way that you treat Igbo people, which is like Igbo spirits. And they always talked about like Igbos being warriors and giving money to Igbo spirits. So that I thought that was funny because I really like money. So they're like, you know, you have to treat the spirits well. You must present the money. I was like, is this a thing? Is this ancestral? Is this within the divinities that how much I love money? Like, I didn't know that was, I just thought it was me. But apparently it's in my lineage too. But the reason why I brought up that background of thinking about religious traditions is that I think that what I'm mostly getting to the point is that there are ways that you can see, there's parts of me that I was seeing part of myself in Haiti. And as I was seeing part of myself, there was a whole world that was illuminated, that started to illuminate about the different ideas, genres, topics. And when I got to Haiti, I was like, I felt it. I felt that there were people that were like me that were there, that were here. I felt it. I was like, this. So again, this is feeling. Sometimes we can't explain that in the intellectual self. Like, how do you feel? Like you could feel it. But then also when you know the history to match it. But there's there's senses that you feel within yourself. You know.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
So it's cool that both the intellectual and the embodied spaces match up with each other.
Now, I do have a question for you before really we get to the meat. As we say in Creole, Vienna. Now, you went to Harvard, and you have a master's degree in theological studies. Now, when you are pursuing your master's there, did you have a chance to take classes and African-derived religions in the diaspora? Okay.
Yeah, that's the reason why I went to Harvard Divinity School. I thought that in terms of the Divinity School, Harvard Divinity School prides itself off of interreligious faith. And when I went to HDiv, and I said, oh, I'm studying Haitian Vodou, people already knew about the religious tradition. They were already pointing me to different practitioners. And they were, luckily, I had folks that were 1 to 2 years my senior, because, you know, there's people that are taking the theological degree is 2 years versus the MDiv is 3 years. Yeah. And unless you want to do another master's as well. So when I say 2 years my senior, some of them were already, they had speakers who were Haitian Vodou practitioners come to the university and present. So I did not feel out of place, and rather it was really nice to feel celebrated. Now, what I was also experiencing, which was interesting, was in terms of the black students, was like the Christians, the Black Christians, as well as me being like the diaspora. So it's like, you know, I could see them. It was funny because, like, obviously I'm Black, and then, you know, you could tell that there was a way that some of them just didn't know how to place me, but then they're like, you know, we all come from Africa. So like they were trying to read more about the African indigenous religions as well. So depend on who you talk to, because some people were like, you know, we don't talk about that religious tradition. And then there's some that did. So again, even within the students for Harvard Divinity School, it was very, very diverse. I would say the Black students were very, very diverse, and I really enjoyed that. But I took classes. Oh yeah, I was gonna say I took classes with Jacob Olapuna, Professor Jacob.
Oh really? Oh my God.
Yeah. So he was a distinguished scholar in African religions. So that was really really fun.
I met him for the first time. I went to the AR the annual conference in Denver back in, I don't remember the exact year, but he was in a room giving a keynote in the African religion unit. So I was there. Wow, what a brilliant mind.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's interesting. When I was, I have a Master of Divinity and Biblical and Theological Studies. Now,
where at?
Yeah, from Southern Seminary. It's a seminary in Louisville, Kentucky.
Okay, cool.
So it's interestingly, when I was doing my Master of Divinity, very long degree, 94 credit hours. It's a professional degree for people who have an interest, in Christian ministry. Now, I took a course on world religion. Studied, Hinduism, Taoism, Islam, but in other world religion, the so-called world religions. But there was not only no reference to Yoruba religion, to African traditional religion. We even went to a Hindu temple to do some ethnographic work. Because I chose to do mine on the Nation of Islam, because there is a presence of the Nation of Islam in the city of Louisville, Kentucky. So, but what I was a little sad, because I knew, was born in Haiti, grew up in Haiti, and so I knew about Haitian Vodou. But there were like no mentions, no connections in the entire course on the religious experience of the African people in the African diaspora. I had to take, the courses that I took at the University of Louisville when I was working on my master's degree in religious studies. That's when, I was exposed to other traditions, right? African religious traditions, African diasporic traditions. But yeah. So the reason I asked you that question, did you take any course in African American religion? This is very important.
Yeah.
Or especially for Black people, to know, to understand the substantial, enormous contributions the African people and people of the African diaspora have made in religious studies. Not only that, as we know, European scholars, thinkers would associate civilization with religion. Do you worship God? Who is your God? Do you have a religion? Do you have a culture? So when you have an entire continent that's been undermined, rejected, because of some European ideologies, right? Africa has no history. This is where religion is very important. This is why it's important to study first, I would argue, African tradition, religion, Yoruba tradition. Anyway, so
yeah. No, can I just add to that? Because I think that what I'm most fortunate about is that I've had senior scholars who were in the place and spaces to teach me about African diasporic religions. So even from undergrad, I had a professor, I'm sure you know Dr. Claudine Michel.
Yes.
Who's there? She was my advisor. Also, there was another Haitian scholar, Nadege Cliton.
Yes.
Roberto Strongman, who Dr. Roberto Strongman, that worked on queering Black Atlantic religions. So again, when we talk about training from undergrad and then, from Harvard Divinity School, having Marla Frederick, Dr. Marla Frederick, who's now the new dean of Harvard Divinity School, Jacob Olupuna, that's there, Dr. Jacob Olupuna. I need to make sure I say doctors. And then even being in my PhD and having professors like Dr. Anthea Butler, Dr. Heather Williams, and I was also taking courses at Princeton. So Dr. Judith Weisenfeld, and then again, in terms of my committee, I also was working with Dr. Elizabeth Perez, who was at Dartmouth at the time and then went to Santa Barbara. So again, I'm naming these names to say that in terms of the training, some of these scholars, when they were coming up, they were like, again, like talking like you in terms of they had to do a lot of work to do a lot of research, and a lot of personal research to make sure that African indigenous religions, African diasporic religions were talked about, and were studied. And then so now where I'm coming in, I feel like I'm standing on the shoulders of giants, because I've been fully trained in African diasporic religions, and it's that training that I think that way in which even you're seeing the way I wrote, I felt like I did not do. I wrote I wrote in a way that felt very empowered, that felt that like was more of a call to action and say like, I'm not going to do this work where I'm telling you why Haiti matters. It matters. People have already proven that already. So, and if you didn't think Haiti didn't matter, okay, think about the Haitian Revolution in 1804. Like, get out of here, So Haiti's been mattering. So it's up to you whether you wanted to pay attention to this space or not. So you're hearing me talk about the training, the types of people that I've been engaging with, because this matters. And when we think about the new generation of scholars who are getting trained in Africana studies or Black studies, African American studies, and religious studies, or even anthropology, it's important to know that there is a lineage of scholars that have been doing this work and that have been talking about this work. So I always think to myself, like, how grateful I am to be at this time and to also understand that my Is the computer okay?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I think there's a little.
I lost you for a few seconds.
Okay, where'd you lose me at? Where'd you lose me at?
You were talking about how it's important for new scholars. I think that's.
Dang, I was on a roll. I was on a roll.
God, yeah.
Darn technology. That's okay. I was saying that it was important that new scholars understand the legacy of African and African diasporic religions.
Yes.
That the scholars that have been that are still here, and then the scholars that are before us have a robust amount of work, and we are still digging and unearthing multiple ways of thinking about this religious tradition. So again, I like when you said that we in the world, for your thoughts about world religious traditions, that we should have had some space to talk about African religious traditions.
Of course.
Again, when we think about the academy and when we think about the role of white supremacy and the role of racism, it has had an indelible mark on the ways that we think about scholarship. And I talk about that in my book about how African and African diasporic religions has been demarcated to other. And when scholars were thinking about this this now fascinating topic that's now over 20 years old about material religion, the stuff, the things, the items that are needed to honor and celebrate the God or multiple gods. So now people are like, thinking about that material religion in Catholicism. They're thinking about material religion in Hinduism. They're thinking about that, and I'm like, African and African diasporic religions have been done this, but y'all weren't paying attention because you kept calling them fetish. You kept calling them other. You kept calling them Satanism. You kept calling them like just anything else that other than these robust religious traditions. So again, when we talk about the training and the scholarship, these are very important conversations.
Yes, yeah, most definitely. Now, your book, it's a book on the sacredness of fashion, style, Vodou aesthetics. And of course, your book makes a unique and tremendous contribution to Vodou scholarship and Haitian studies. So there's the focus on ethnographic work in the US, also in Haiti, especially your interactions with Mambo Mode, and her temple, actually temples in Haiti and the States. Now, you write something very intriguing on page 4. I want to share this with the audience. You write, when dress becomes a part of religion, it is transformed into a sacred item. I like that. Connotating beliefs, engaging with power dynamics, acting to the spiritual world, and more. Now, when I first read that quote, I tell you what, it reminds me of my grandmother, who was a prominent Mambo in her own ways, right? I remember as a little boy in Haiti, maybe, 5, 6 years old, I used to go to her house because we lived in this city in Cap-Haïtien, but she lived in a place called Pomago, not too far. And that's where I used to spend my summer, like my summer vacation. So I did not fully understand what was going on, but I was fascinated. What fascinated me was her dress, her long dress. Oh my gosh. And big earrings, and especially when she had those Vodou ceremonies in her laku. And of course, she was a beautiful, not because she's my grandmother. I believe she was beautiful. The most beautiful lady, kindest lady I've ever encountered in my life. So when I read that quote on page 4, I started to make connection. It takes me back to my childhood memories at her house. So now I do have a question about this. Can you discuss the relationship between performative aesthetics and the sacred world of the Vodou Loa? What's going on there?
Yeah. Let me make sure I say this before I answer the difference or like the connection between performative aesthetics and the sacred tradition. I think it's always, like, again, as an ethnographer, I think it's always important to know like how I came to this work. And again, you heard the background. I talked about being Nigerian, how my parents and being both Nigerian and American has influenced my way of thinking. Well, when, like, you named we talked about all my schools, being at Harvard, Penn, and Princeton. I also want to note that I met Mambo Mode while I was in Harvard Divinity School. So that was my connection, my Harvard connection, and my way of entering and talking to Mambo Mode during that time. So Harvard is a special place for me. But I wanted to think about like the ways of how and why, and also to know that when I say that I'm a scholar of Haitian religion, I proud to say that I've been to over 300 ceremonies all across the diaspora, Haitian diaspora. And I have been seeing different ceremonies from, like, again, from Port-au-Prince, from Jacmel, and different areas in those spaces. Again, I listed all the US and Canada spaces as well. And it's important to know that when part of my main argument in the book is to say that the spirits talk and are thinking about who that whole person is. And what I mean by that is that when people have talents, the spirits pay attention to that. So I don't know if you know who Ati Max Beauvoir is.
Of course.
Of course. Okay. Yeah. I was like, who do I? Yeah. So for those the audience that don't know, Ati Max Beauvoir is one of the most renowned Ungans, and he passed away a few years ago in Haitian Vodou, and has a temple in Port-au-Prince. Now, Ati Max Beauvoir is not only a Vodou practitioner, he also had a degree in biochemistry, and he had over 2,000 plants in his home, and he can name each plant. He's like, oh, this is the vociferous, this. I'm not a plant person, so I'm just making that shit up. But he can name the plants and talk about their healing properties in relationship to the divinities. And wow. So again, he used his talents to think about, it expanded his way of thinking about Vodou. Now, when it comes to fashion, you brought up your grandmother.
Yes.
I also want to bring up my own mother. So as someone that's from California, I consider myself like my style, like I call it hobo chic. I have my yoga pants, my Birkenstocks, and I come in, maybe a nice dress shirt. That's how I go to meetings, California swag. But when I was in Mambo Mode's home, and what I noticed in the house, those two spiritual homes, is the way that she has been attentive to how one shows up. And again, the way that she thinks about showing up, this is still a continuous theme in Haitian Vodou. People are mindful about the clothes that they wear, the dresses that they wear, and how they present themselves. Like even like the bodily preparation that comes in to go to prepare yourself for the ceremony. It's intense. But what I loved about Mambo Mode's home is that I watched how her work and her profession and her spiritual prowess connected. So Mambo Mode is also not only a Vodou practitioner, but she is also a trained, she got a degree in fashion studies, and she's a fashion designer. And she also has a degree in economics, as well as mental health clinician. She got jobs. So I think it's important for us to understand that people are showing up and bringing in their specialties and having that be a part of Vodou. And again, for my own self, I remember my mom, especially when I got into Harvard, because that was huge for the Nigerian culture. Like we're just so highly educated. So when I got
we know.
Just to remind you all the time.
Yes,
so
yes.
I remember my mom saying to me, Eziaku, please, you're at Harvard. Don't look like a bum. And I started off saying, I'm not looking like a bum. So if my mom was watching this, I'm not a bum right now. so clothing and fashion and these the ways that people show up is very important, and people could show up in multiple ways. So again, in my 300 ceremonies I've been to, I watched how people show up in different ways. Some people paid attention more to the architecture, the altars, the construction work. Some people paid attention to, like I said, the agriculture, the leaves, the farming. But again, in the case of Mambo Mode, her use of fashion and being very mindful about the clothing, so much so that it is so lavish and decorative, help me understand just the very dynamic ways that clothing and dress in terms of the color, the style, the articulation, really does connect with the spirits. That there's a meta language that happens with clothing being a part of its connection and drawing and being closer to the spirits. So I was seriously interested in that meta language with clothing, the use of color, the use of the ways that people are showing up, and then also thinking about how the way of dress helps people connect within the community. So I hope that gives this idea about thinking about the world, about the sacred world. But in terms of the performative aesthetics, this is where we can see the role of gender and sexuality come into our ideas and understanding. So when we think about performative, we also need to think about the ways that gender, the performative natures of gender and the gender dynamics. So what do I mean by that? So there's a way that these dresses that Mambo Mode is wearing, that the Haitian people or Haitian women are wearing, there's historical relevance to the types of clothing, the types of fabric, the way that it opens up, that has Caribbean influences. But then also when we think about the idea of wearing a dress versus pants, that's classified and stereotypically for male practitioners, that's helping us think about the ways that gender has impacted the performative aesthetics of dress. So again, we're not just, these performative aesthetics are connected to the sacred world, because there's also a way that people are imagining the spirits. There's a gendering that happens with the spirits as well. In terms of, you even though Esli Danto, like for example, Esli Danto, that's the guardian protector spirit of and protectress and warrior spirit, and there are people that say she's a keeper of lesbians, and she is again a powerful warrior. There's a way that one is thinking about her as more of a female or sometimes trans identity for her, versus Ogu, who is the god of war. And although he has variations of Ogu, like the type of masculinity that he can present, typically there is more male versions of Ogu. So again, there's a way that you're going to dress for these different types of spirits. There's a type of way that helps us understand the social constructions of gender and sexuality. So the performance aesthetics is not either or, but it's tied directly to the sacred as well. And it helps us illuminate the way we see, the way people see like the social and cultural ways of Haiti as well.
So the performance and the fashion and voodoo all are connected with our construction, our imagination of those spirits. Because as we know, the spirits, they're not humans, they're energy.
Yes.
But they take upon the human body when they manifest themselves. So you talk about Eziaku as a female deity, and by contrast, Ogun as a male deity. And of course, it's the way we have constructed those spirits, right?
Yes.
And to, not only the binary now, you mentioned that there's this, the trans identity, right? That we find in Eziaku. This is very interesting. And of course, we're going to get to this question later, right? But one of the most exciting questions in Haitian Vodou about sexuality. Now, so in a sense, the Loa themselves appreciate beauty, fashion.
Yeah, I think so. I made it abundantly clear that the gods do care about how they look. And that was something that I noticed in, again, I always say this, that I'm not a scholar, I'm a scholar of Haitian studies. And again, by going to all those ceremonies, I was able to see how people were practicing the religious tradition, and maybe more simplistic understandings, but again, the attention to care for the different types of rituals, the preparation. Like, you still had to make sure that altar was nice and clean. You still had to make sure that your white dress was pressed, was washed. So again, if you think about the most simple dresses to the most lavish diamonds, like sparkles, the spirits do care how you present yourself. So I think that when I noticed that across the board, I thought that was an important contribution to make to think really seriously about the role of the spirits and how they're presenting themselves in the spiritual world, in the human world,
Yes. And of course, this is chapter 1 in your book. You talk about, you talk about color and clothes to show, to show off. Right? To show off, right?
You gotta go out, man.
Yeah, you have to, right? You have to. It's interesting. Even, you know what? Even in Haitian churches, like Protestant Christian churches, you don't go to church just the way you are.
No.
You don't.
Oh, you don't do the come as you are? It's not the come as you are?
No.
You don't accept that?
No. You gotta wear, it's your Sunday best. In fact, some Christians in Haiti, even here in the diaspora, people will not go to church because of, because they do not have, new clothes or a new pair of sneakers. Because there's this idea, okay, you're going to church, you have to represent, you have to look nice.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's interesting.
Yeah. And again, I think I honestly wanted, I think my Niger mother for helping me see that. Because again, we talk about family. My mom, first of all, my mom doesn't match, but because she's Nigerian, she's African, it just looks good because it's her. So she was mixing leopard print with stripes before people were doing that shit. Okay. Wow. But my mom, she's a social worker. And I used to be like, Mom, why are you wearing hella diamonds as you're working in the social work space? Why are you wearing all your African gele? Why are you going to work? And she's like, I must look good. And she said, if Oprah sees me right now, it's always Oprah. If Oprah sees me right now, she'll know she's met someone.
I love it. I love it.
Stay. So again, I think that there's a way that when we think about the African diaspora, how people really do care about themselves and how they show up. And then now we're thinking about a religious perspective, that there are some connections to that. This is very important. And this is like you said, I'm glad you caught that. It's a key way of thinking critically about the attention to care and way that people take care of themselves.
Yes. Yeah. Now, the phenomenon of dressing, performance, do we find the same practice in other African diaspora religions? What I have in mind here, Santeria, Candomblé, Obeya. Can you?
Yeah. As you see, I'm getting ready because I'm like, scholar of African diasporic religions. I have been very fortunate to go to some Cuban Santeria drumming. And I have seen a number of ways that, so again, I brought Ezli Danto. When it came to the clothing and then the decor for Yemaya, that's Ezli Danto's counterpart, so Yemaya, the goddess of the sea. The types of clothing for when it came to honoring Yemaya, the types of clothing when it came to honoring all the spirits and wearing the white. These clothes not only look beautiful, but they cost a lot of money to make
Mhm.
as well. So there's a heavy cost, there's a cost to it, as well as there's a lavishness in these religious traditions that I think that is worth noting.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, and you know, and if anyone's ever watched on YouTube like Brazilian candomblé, or
Mhm.
even seen like Yoruba traditions in both the United States as well as Nigeria, these clothes are these are very serious sacred clothes
Mhm.
that are extremely important and beautiful. And the way that people prepare the clothes or when the ceremony is over and they take off their clothes, you can't just discard those clothes. You can't go, oh, it's over. Ugh, it's done. There's a way that you even have to make sure that clothes like gets folded. You maybe have to put it away, or you might have to wash
This
it
is
later, but
interesting.
you can't just take it
Mhm.
away, because that's a sacred item now. So
Yes.
what you put on is just as important as how you take it off and how you store it as well.
Mhm.
Washed
Yeah,
and stored
yeah.
again.
But clothes in general have, have played an important part in religious tradition. As a
Yes.
person who has studied theology,
Mm.
I think there's a passage in the New Testament. The lady who was losing blood, right? When she
Mm.
touched Jesus's clothes,
Yeah, the hem
the,
of the cloth.
the
Yeah.
notion of sacredness, healing in the clothes, and
Yeah.
she was made whole.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This is powerful,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
Clothing has impacted a number of religious traditions.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very important. And that's why I think that I'm going back to what you said about thinking about the emphasis of thinking about African indigenous African diasporic religious traditions,
Mm-hmm.
being a part of all religious traditions and not being castigated into a religion that we just don't pay attention to. We can see the ways, one, that Haitian religion is, I call it, it's a world religion.
Mm-hmm.
Haitian Vodou is a world religion, and it stands with these other religious traditions like Christianity, Hinduism, Catholicism, Islam, to start having more robust conversations
Right.
about like the ideas about clothing and what clothing is done. And so again, I know that you're bringing up the Christian perspective.
Mm-hmm.
I also in my book, I talk about like how it's important just to sometimes not even like, how you compared. I like how you did the comparison, but there's even times I'm like, sometimes we don't even need to compare, because we can just focus on what Haitian religion is doing.
Exactly.
Because we don't need to look at Christianity.
Yeah. Definitely.
There's just a wide
Mm-hmm.
work of breadth of information that we could just understand. But and I still like how you're thinking along multiple religious traditions. So I wanted to say that this both and about thinking about world religions, but thinking about specifically what makes Haitian Vodou so particular and unique and special.
And so that's what you're able to accomplish in your book.
Yeah.
Now, I want us to transition a little bit to talk about the connection between race and inclusion in Haitian Vodou. An interesting topic you discuss in chapter 3 in your book. You make an important observation, which I believe is quite interesting, right? And relevant to my question. So, but I do want to read for our audience, not for you. You wrote that book, right? So you wrote, for some Black folks, Vodou functions as a space of healing and community with other Black people. The inclusion of white people in a space that many view as a refuge from the anti-Black racism of the world beyond the temple is a contentious issue. Then you also wrote, often the Black practitioners I interviewed asked me not to include their opinions and stories they shared about white practitioners. They worried about the potential interpersonal conflicts that publications of those stories might cause. for better or for worse, these white practitioners are now their spiritual siblings. Spiritual siblings. I love that term. Now, does spiritual equality cut the racial line in Haitian Vodou? In other words, are white practitioners spiritually equal to the Black practitioners in Vodou? Why is the worry? Why? Some Black practitioners are worried, like as if white people are taking over the religion.
Can I just say, I was in my bag with that analysis. Before we get into race, I want to really think about the way that I wrote that narrative through the lens of how Black practitioners are feeling versus just thinking about Black practitioners, white practitioners, or Latinx practitioners. It was important for me as a scholar of Africana religions to think critically about the investments and desires and beliefs of Black people in the diaspora. So when we think about the Black people in the diaspora, Africa, Haiti, the Caribbean, United States, Black people are not a monolith. And Haitian Vodou is not a monolith. There's many ways to honor Vodou. If we think about Vodou in the North, it looks different than Vodou in the South.
That's right. That's where I'm from, just to let you know. The North. All right, keep talking.
It's different. If you think about Vodou in the city, it's different than Vodou in the rural spaces. Vodou in Haiti is different than Vodou in the States. There are still some main themes that are there. Like, again, you're not going to put Legba in the end. You know, there's pecking orders, there's still rituals and traditions that you still have to honor. There's still rituals, supplies that you still need to honor that are for these religious traditions. But when we think about like the amount of ancestors, who people are more spiritually affiliated with, Vodou as well as Black people are very complex. So I want to make sure that we understand that the beliefs about Vodou, the understanding about Blackness, about what Vodou has meant to different Black people was quite expansive. And again, I'm glad that I paid attention to Black people and how they felt, because I knew that there was not one way about how Black people felt about their connection to Vodou, as well as their thoughts about white people in the religious tradition. Now, I also think it's important to know that I'm also coming from thinking about some of my folks, scholars like the late Toni Morrison, who, I don't know if you remember this interview where she was with this one woman who was asking her, why doesn't she write about what
Only
more
Black
white
people? Yes.
Yeah. That, I don't know about y'all, but that really did impact how I was thinking about centering Black people. Because just watching Toni Morrison's regal face go to say like why would you feel so empowered to ask this question? And why does it harm you to think to have Black people be at the center? What value, so again, and I'm also thinking about Chimamanda Adichie to think about new narratives. So again, if I want to make sure that I say that about like, when we think about the expansiveness of Black people, it really is, I was hoping that chapter 3 does do that work of showcasing that expansiveness. Another thing, when we think about the idea about race, I want to make sure I say this, that what was striking about thinking about the role of Vodou as it pertains to the Black practitioners, I think it's also important to think about the history of Vodou. So before I can say how Black people think about white people, we also need to know that there's a reason why some Black people are reticent about white people participating. If you think about historically, Haitian Vodou has been seen as it has been stigmatized heavily. When we think about the earthquake, what were people saying? There are some people that are saying, oh, it's because people are practicing Vodou, and that's why Haiti has the earthquake, or Haiti has signed a pact to the devil. So when you think about the ways that Vodou was almost erased by white supremacy, how Vodou was some people had to hide their religious traditions, it makes sense why some Black people do not want white people in that space, because they are reminders of this historical and racial issues that are happening in Haiti, in the United States. So again, when we talk about Black people wanting refuge, I understand the ways that Black people are trying to seek their own space, because again, even when the Black people are finding refuge, they still have to do inner workings with other Black people, because it's not a kumbaya moment if it's just, even if it's majority Black people are still fighting each other. Like, there's people are thinking about resources, some people don't like each other, boyfriend, girlfriend issues. Like you don't know. There's so many dynamics that are happening, power relationship, youth, age. So again, when Black people are talking about refuge, I understand. Mambo Mode has talked about how Black religion, Haitian Vodou is a Black religion, and we know this because of the ways it stems from African indigenous religious traditions. And I love the way that in the book she calls white people and people that are outside the African diaspora coming to the religion as an adoptive religion. That there's so for her, that there's a way that that it doesn't necessarily belong to you, but you can still have that the spirits can be useful to you in terms of healing. So I actually would not think about the role of equity and whether like people are equal to each other, but I actually am more concerned about how Black people are seeing the way that religion impacts them, and how Black people are responding to white supremacy. And I think that's the main question. And again, I was very concerned about the way that for a number of people I've interviewed that I found to be, and I could just admit this right now, that sometimes it was a bit hard, is that for some, when Black people who have white spiritual siblings as their are part of the family home, a number of them have talked to me about some of the harm that was committed, the verbal harm or the spiritual harm that was committed. And in Mambo Mode's particular home, she has to address that, the racial issues and fissures that are happening in the spiritual home. But again, as you read, I do find it frustrating that instead of Black people talking about the harm, they were worried about white people's sensibilities and not making white people feel bad, versus them talking about how wrong they felt. And again, I think about the role of like what happens to people that have been harmed, and how you think about oppressors. That really does. I was really mindful about that. I was really mindful about how people were trying to make sure that I don't want to say they're just saving face, but they really are thinking about the image and also thinking about the image of Mambo Mode. But then also you're also seeing the role of white supremacy, even in the ways that they are thinking about their religious tradition. So again, there are some Black people that are like, I don't want to deal with that shit. Black people, Vodou is Black, it's for Black people. And I'd rather deal with issues within Black people so we can figure ourselves out. And then again, in Mambo Mode's home, in which there's other Vodou homes that are like that, where they see themselves as an open religious tradition where anybody can be in, that is welcome to everybody. So
let me interrupt you here.
Yeah.
I think on page 90, right? This is how you report that. Mambo Mode does not believe the healing power of voodoo can be limited to any one racial community. Pain is pain, and the spirits are a resource to address human troubles, no matter the color of the person calling on them.
Yeah. 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 I like how we got the reading in. That was good.
This
was
is
good.
powerful. This is powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. But again, as someone that's been in over 300 ceremonies and have been to many homes, I want to make sure I say that is Mambo Mode and other Vodou practitioners' way of thinking about Vodou, but that's not how all Black Vodou practitioners think about Vodou, about Haitian Vodou. Where there's Black practitioners who say it's important for when it comes to initiation and the role of Vodou that Vodou is a space of healing, and Black people need to heal. Members of the African diaspora need to heal. And they are more invested and interested in passing on knowledge to members of the African diaspora. So again, I think it's important to see Mambo Mode's way, and no, that's why I was really grateful that I just wasn't focused. Like I wrote about Mambo Mode, but I also opened it up for us to understand this is Mambo Mode and how some Vodou practitioners see it, but it's not how all Vodou practitioners have seen it. And especially when it comes to the mark of harm and white supremacy. I think that if any of the readers readers and listeners that are paying attention, and if there's anybody that's going, but what about white people, Mike? I want people to ask themselves why they're so interested in understanding white people's feelings versus Black people's healing. And I'm very interested in, and I want people to ask themselves, what is their sensibility about paying attention to white people more than black people's spiritual understanding and their healing. So I'm very mindful about how do we think about different types of people, and I'm very mindful about the role of slavery and harm and how people have tried to figure out ways of harm reduction. So again, when it comes to this idea of how does race impact Vodou, and now how does race impact fashion? This is where I'm going. Like I was able to uncover a number of things of thinking about the fissures of what does it mean to dress white bodies. And how the gender dynamics of what happens when white women are mounted by the spirits, and watching Black people's reaction versus when white men are taken over by the spirits and white queer men are taken over by spirits, and watching Black people's reaction. So again, my center focus has always been about how Black people are thinking, and if you in the book you can see that there are some Black people that are like, anybody can get spirit. Spirit is open for everybody. And then there's some people that were like, they're faking it. So where clothing matters is that we can also see some of the fissures of race and the implications of how it impacts people in the Vodou ceremonies, in these religious ceremonies too.
Now, thank you. In the same chapter, you also explore the connection between spiritual marriage, the gender and sexuality in Vodou. Now, the Haitian society is a very conservative society when it comes to certain ways women, men should behave in society. There are the specific roles, right, and functions that are attributed to each gender. So this is very important, right? On the other hand, the Haitian society is very conservative, and when it comes to LGBTQ community, I believe it was before COVID, there was a Haitian, a queer man, a gay man, actually two gay men. One of the partners, one was from England.
Mm.
So I guess they wanted to be the first gay couple to get married in Haiti, and they were stoned. But they escaped. They escaped the crowd. So this is very important to me. Should be important to, to our listeners to understand the dynamic in gender, right, and sexuality in Haitian Vodou. What is the attitude? What's the attitude of Vodou practitioners towards, for example, the LGBTQ community?
Yeah.
Let's begin with this question, then we're going to transition to the idea of spiritual marriage.
Yeah, I think that I want to make sure I'm clear, because sometimes when it comes to countries outside the US, when it comes to like what am I trying to get at? The
LGBTQ community?
Anti-LGBTQ, anti-homosexuality. There's a way that sometimes the United States likes to romanticize that they are like just so much better than the other countries. And being in the United States, being born and raised in the United States, it's important to know that homophobia, that's what I was trying to get at, homophobia in Haiti is rampant, and it's still and there's still homophobia in the United States. So again, I just don't want to say like, I just don't want us to come out and think about like that the United States doesn't have any homophobia. They do. And I don't want us to walk away by thinking Haiti is only just hell homophobic. They're both. And when it comes to how Vodou practitioners feel about LGBTQ people, it really comes down to the spiritual home. There are some spiritual homes that are known for being open, for being a refuge, for being safe, for members of the LGBTQ. In Mambo Mode's home in particular, there's been members that are LGBTQ who have gone from other temples to go into Mambo Mode's home because they felt more safe in Mambo Mode's home. I coined two terms in my book, but one of the things I talk about was Vodou hop, how people hop to different, move to different religious homes or find places and spiritual spaces that suit their needs. But one of the things I also am mindful of is that, like, for women, for both cisgender, hetero women, as well as LGBTQ folks, I've saw a number of them having to hop to multiple homes because they had to figure out what spaces fit them and where they felt safe, and that they weren't dealing with any sexual harm or spiritual harm because they were queer or cisgender heterosexual women. So I think that the answer is it depends. And I was very mindful of not saying African indigenous religions like Haitian Vodou is a queer religion. I think because when people were thinking about the role of possession, how both like a male spirit can take over a social stereotype, a cisgender woman's body. Did I say male first? I just okay. So male spirit takes over a cisgender woman's body. People talk about that dynamic, and then that happens. That does happen. But for me, I'm very mindful of thinking about what is happening to the people, and how we should be mindful about thinking about calling a space queer when there are queer people that are not feeling safe, even in that tradition. So all religions can be queer. All religions have a queering relationship to it. But and also it's important to pay attention to what's happening to the people. So and again, in the case of the people are trying to figure out their safe havens, where they can feel supported and appreciated.
Yeah, this is great. I like you're very careful, right, to address this issue, because it's an important issue. Because some people would, yes, Vodou, all African, there's a sense of inclusion, openness, right, to different traditions, to different lifestyles, to different, intellectual traditions, for example. I've listened to countless interviews by both Vodou practitioners, Mambo and Nga. And I was listening to, there's a Haitian show called Blocus. The host likes to interview Vodou practitioners, and I've listened very closely to some Vodou practitioners, and this guy said, "I will not let a homosexual get possessed in my temple. It's not going to happen." And he goes to the argument of natural. This is non-natural. Now, and of course, some people, when I say this is the natural, homosexuality, that was the Unga's perspective. Now, some US-based scholars are very quick. I want people to pay attention to this. They're quick to mention, well, Vodou, there's no homophobia in Vodou, homophobic attitude. That's not true. Like you said, you have to examine it on a case-by-case. There might be some temples that are open, right, that are more tolerant to the LGBTQ community. But when you actually interview the people who belong to that community, they tell you a different story. Sometimes those stories are very complex.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also for me, being a participant observer, I've seen it. I watched how I'm not even thinking about white queer men, but when when Black gay men, when they're taken over by a feminine spirit, I watch how cisgender heterosexual Black men, there are sometimes some of them that will they'll wince their face, that will suck their teeth. Their teeth.
Yes.
And again, I like you if you just read in a book without seeing that interaction, you would just miss out. Or again, I even wrote about this in the book. One of the stories that one of the vignettes I talk about, like I was watching this one practitioner ball up his fist, like he was mad when he saw this gay Black man getting taken over, because he didn't want that practitioner to touch or hold or be affectionate to his male friend. So again, I'm like, people are thinking about like, these ceremonies are like safe spaces. There's times where like the ceremonies are nice and then they are able to execute the religious tradition. And after the spiritualities and the work is done, when it hits 3 a.m., 6 a.m., there are people that can get harmed after the religious tradition. So queer people have to be mindful about even how they exit. Women have to be mindful about how they exit. And men have to be mindful. But again, I'm talking about queer people, but there is a safety component. And I was really really trying to enforce that understanding. I'm like, there's a safety component that queer people are constantly thinking about, even in these sacred spaces. That is worth noting. And again, because I was a practitioner of a participant observer, I was able to witness that and see those dynamics that was happening.
I think this is one of the great virtue about your book. I think it has to do with your character as a scholar, a person who pursues the truth, right? Who reveals what you have observed. Because there's a sense, again, my Vodou scholars, please forgive me, and of course, I have written, you know, two collections. I've written two volume work on Haitian Vodou, but it's important. There's a sense that people don't want to deal with the challenges in that religion, and in this book, you confront those challenges, but you do it with care, with understanding, right? On the one hand, okay, you are defending the sacredness of this tradition, right? That belongs to the African diaspora people. But on the other hand, you said this is the mess. This is what we need to fix. I like that.
You caught that shit. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
This is what the critical mind. This is what scholars should do.
This is what scholars should do.
Yeah.
Listen, you get me. You get me.
That
That was cool.
Finally, I'm like,
yeah.
Finally somebody's doing this.
Yeah.
Right? Because this is about the human care, the welfare of people. Right? As you know, life is sacred. The sacredness of life transcends our religious traditions and practices.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you. Thank you.
No, I'm glad you caught that because and I just want to say because I had some haters out there. I thank you for catching that because too often, and I noticed that understandably so, and I wrote about this, that there are scholars who study Haitian Vodou. Part of their work is to defend the religion. Mm-hmm. And that defense comes from the fact that there are so many people that have stigmatized the religious tradition. Yes. So most of the work has to be like, this is not what Vodou is, here's what Vodou is. This is not what Vodou does, this is why Vodou is important, this is that. So again, the reason why you're also seeing me speak and lean in that way is because there's a number of scholars that did that. That's why even the preface, I'm coming and going, you need to see Vodou in its everything, in its completeness, because Haiti's whole. And I'm tired of arguing about this. So when you walk into this book, you need to know that Haitian Vodou is. And so that way we can understand the intricacies of the religious tradition. And if we say that Haitian Vodou is a world religion, is a religion that is supposed to be understanding in its full complexity, then we need to understand the messiness. And so I think it's important to understand the intricacies of what is happening in the religious traditions, what's happening to the people. How are the people, like, when is it when what they say and what they do don't really align? What is the underlying thing when they go, oh yeah, everyone's equal. And then you watch on the sidelines when people go, like, you have to see all those nuances. So again, I credit the role of being a Black feminist ethnographer, about being reflexive, about being critical, about understanding my space and the ways that people were able to talk to me about, and also thinking about the work I had to do, the years I had to spend spending time in a space, making mistakes. Like when you talk about the conservatives of Haitian people, bruh, like I've made a number of mistakes in Haiti trying to ask people about gender and sexuality, and that shit went left. People were pissed off at me. But
did anybody call you Blanc?
Oh, of course, yeah. I was Blanc African. I was known as the big Black African or big Black foreigner. So I was still Blanc. Once you foreigner, you Blanc. Yeah. But then they're like, oh, Blanc African or African Blanc, Blanc African. So I took that. I mean, it's so funny because when I was in Nigeria, I was seen as Oyibo, like they said that was like a white woman, and I was like, damn, I can't be Black nowhere. So I felt like I was like, I've been here before. The diaspora people, like I was like, oh, okay. So
I love it.
Yeah. But I think, yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, I lost it. I forgot what I was gonna say. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
So when that thought comes by, you can always interrupt me, right?
Okay.
Yeah. Now, you also talk about an interesting phenomenon in Haitian Vodou. It's the idea of spiritual marriage. Now, this is interesting, where practitioners engage in a matrimonial union with certain Vodou spirits. First, I would like you to tell our listeners what is spiritual marriage first. How is it different than, let's say, the traditional marriage between two human beings?
It's not as different though, when you
Okay.
think about it, because there's a commitment, there's paperwork, there's a signed paperwork by the spirit. So spiritual marriage is a ritual phenomenon that connects the spirit to the practitioner. And most of the times members have been initiated, and when they're doing part of their readings to figure out what type of spirits are aligned with them, this is beyond just their metet or who's their supreme person that guides their head. They find out what particular spirits walk with them. And so there are times where practitioners will usually go to their main mambo or ungan for reading to decipher the messages of what the Vodou spirits have said. But by marrying the spirits, it provides a connection or a link to the practitioner or the initiate, as a way to say that I don't necessarily need to go to the other practitioners to help decipher this work, although people still do, but I'm going to come to you directly. So the way that they come to directly is by seeing both physical and dreams, through spiritual dreams, where they get messages from the spirits. And it's what is important to know is that there's a ceremony that happens where some people can marry up from either two to, as Mama Mo's home has. Yes, there's rings. Yes, there's yes. Is it first? Oh, so yes, there is some material commitment that is needed. Again, the rings that are associated for the spirits that gets blessed, and there is also a written contract. So like physical and non-spiritual or worldly marriages, by having contracts, about having some material item that connects the spirits, connects the person, people to people. That happens in spiritual marriages. Can I just say, Celucien, we talked about this before. This is one of my favorite chapters. This is one of my favorite chapters. Because one thing about me, I love talking about sex. I love talking about dreams. And there's a moment where I was like, this cannot be research. Am I doing the things?
Oh my gosh. Look, let me cut you. You were fantastic in that chapter. I was laughing, right? Yeah. I was. And it's my favorite chapter because the issue of making love to the spirit is one of the most controversial topics in Haitian Vodou. How do you make love with a non-human, entity? You know what I mean? Oh my God. Can we transition to that?
Yes, we can. We can come back and forth to the spiritual marriage. So I explained what spiritual marriage is.
Yeah.
But can I just say, I want to make sure I give credit where credit is due. This was actually a question when I was an undergrad. So that question of can you make love to the spirits has been a looming question for over a decade. And it was a conversation that I heard between Patrick Bellegarde-Smith and Claudine Michel in that class, in that African diasporic religions class. So Claudine Michel was teaching the course. She brought up Patrick Bellegarde-Smith, and Patrick Bellegarde-Smith was talking about the Vodou cosmology and issues, And then Claudia Michelle was asked the question, Patrick, can you, I have a question. And the way that she paused, I remember just sitting on my seat going like, what is she gonna say? And she said, Patrick, I have a question. Can you make love to a spirit? Because I had a friend and she had a dream. And in the dream, she made love to the spirit. And then Patrick replies, yes, of course, I make love to the spirit all the time. So Lucy, I need you to understand how fucking cool that was. For a junior scholar that's like talks about sex with their friends all the time. I was like, one, is this scholar, like you could talk about this as scholarship? This is what we're learning in the classroom? How cool. I was like, oh, I was like, this is dope. I want to get in this. So imagine, I want us to think about like just the fact that she asked that question in the classroom. That question has captivated me for over a decade. How does a question?
Provocative.
It's such a provocative question. And you know what I had to find out, because remember I told you there was a moment where when I was asking people questions, and you can hear from me, you know, I'm very high achieving, very assertive. And I made some faux pas because I was sometimes asking too blunt questions of when for people's backgrounds, their sexuality, their sexual desires. People were like, get out of my fucking business. And so I had to learn that there was a way that I can get to talk about gender sexuality without having to ask, like, tell me about who you fucking, tell me about about queerness. How does that impact you? Not to say that you couldn't have it, because I still was having conversations about that with some Haitian practitioners in Haiti, but it was way more open when I was in Montreal and the United States. So it's not to say I couldn't have it, but there was a level of tact that I was missing. But I noticed that when I was helping Black women do their head wraps or putting their clothes on or taking down their hair. And again, I want to also us understand that there was a space of labor that me as a cisgender Black woman that I was entering in that put me in a space to have those types of conversations. That I know that if another scholar that's like, maybe say a cisgender Black man, like he's not going to be in the space combing down hair unless that he was known for doing hair. But again, there's gendered dynamics of spaces that people are entering in. So as I was taking down people's hair, someone's hair, and helping with clothes, I had practitioners that just opened up and talk about like the time that they had sex with Ogu, and Ogu was fucking them better than some of their partners, and I was like. Or when Eziaku came on to them, and there was a threesome with Eziaku Danto and Eziaku Freda. And
a threesome.
A threesome. I mean, voodoo. And what I think this is cool to think about is not only just the sexual actions, but if we're saying that spiritual marriages, there's some similarities between spiritual marriages, like human marriages. People are having sex unless they don't want to. But sex is a part of it. Sex is a way to think about intimacy. And I think that in terms of the intellectual engagement that is involved in this, that runs through this line, is to think about the ways that people are finding intimate moments with the divine. And through those intimacies, what gets illuminated from those conversations is the type of care that they feel connected to the spirits, or the different ritual knowledges that comes before and after those sexual expressions that happen. I also want to make sure I say this, that there are people that are asexual that don't want to have sex with different spirits, and consent. Consent is sexy. So so the spirits are not going to have sex with you unless you want them to. So I've even had dreams where I've even had people who told me their dreams where a spirit would try to come onto them and they said no. And out of all the stories I've heard, I have never heard someone say, no, this spirit harmed me. Like I've heard the spirit say, okay, well, we need to talk about this. So I want to make sure that even in the spiritual world, consent is sexy. And I think that's really, really cool to understand about like how the spirits still have to figure out ways of communicating and connecting to the people. And one of the connections is sex. And so what makes sex with the spirits so taboo is because of Christian understandings about like the body and the soul, and the belief that sex is dirty. Like there's some understandings, some Puritan understandings about sex being like only for reproduction and not for pleasure. And again, when we think about an African diasporic framework, there's many different ways to think about sex. Not to say that it's not for reproduction, but there's also pleasure too. And I think that thinking within African diaspora and within African diaspora, indigenous knowledge, that we have to understand that sex plays a role in the cosmology as well as the way that people are relating to each other. So that shit was fun. And I want to say what is cool about my work is that I was able to talk to you about sex both intellectually and non-intellectually, and still have like a great conversation and still see how this impacts people's ways of being. So yeah.
And your interview with Eddie, oh my gosh, you're talking about real sex non-domain. Let me read something you wrote on page 129. I think our listeners would have a greater understanding, right, of what you're trying to convey here. Sexual interactions, which happen non-domain, Haitian Creole for and dream, emphasize, is the key here, the commitment between practitioner and spirit, and play a significant role in enabling intimate labor. Here it is, intimate labor in spiritual marriage. Importantly, sex is not mandatory. Whether to engage in, it's a point of negotiation between the divine and the worshippers. So the spirit negotiate. So there's a sense of, consensual sex.
Mm-hmm.
And then you also write, these sexual relations cannot be reduced. They are expressions of care, pleasure, and adoration that reaffirm the affinity between spirits and practitioners, essential and ecstatic acknowledgement of the good work completed by the faithful enservi. That means in service of the divine. And then let me finish with this. Sexual encounters also occur outside spiritual marriages, often acting as an indicator of which spirits a practitioner has a special connection with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Celucien, can I just say, this book just came out in June. I don't think I am going to get tired of you reading, or of anyone reading my words back to me. Like, I knew I was the shit. And hearing this back again, I'm like, yo, that shit is dope. Like, I said that. Yeah, I said that. I'm very happy that you caught the real lived reality implications that I was trying to highlight, and the realities I was trying to highlight about how people are thinking about Vodou and seeing Vodou. And then again, embracing and feeling Vodou. I don't think that I'm going to get tired of this. I don't think I'm going to get tired of this. Like, okay, so like when people talk about my degrees and they list all of my degrees, and then also now I know, like, when people are reading stuff, I'm like, yeah, like I was in my bag. And this was hard. This work was hard. There's moments where I was like, I hope this shit sounds good. My God. And there was times where it was hard to balance and think about again, this is so intricate to think about race, gender, sexuality, labor, and the ideas of fashion and how that connects to everything. But what we just did in talking about sex and spiritual marriage, this shit is fun. And again, I hope that this does not, I hope that I'm never tired of this. I hope that I hold this joy because it's fun.
This is the classic chapter. For me, it's
so is that your favorite chapter? Is that what I want?
It's my favorite chapter. In fact, let me admit this. I read that chapter twice.
Twice?
I did. Because this is you as a scholar, right? You're trying to explain to your readers, okay, this is what's going on. Then you transition, okay, this is me as an ethnographer. Okay, I'm interviewing this, I'm interviewing Eddie. This is what Eddie reports to me about having sex, not on me. This is how it happens. And it's real.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love it.
You read something twice.
Yes, I did.
Yo, I can walk away from this so happy.
I did. I read this chapter twice.
Yeah.
I'm like, is this real? Is this, look, growing up in Haiti, I've heard, people are talking about this, right? For example, people would say, well, when the Lord comes on certain day, they take the form, some take the form of a snake, they have sex. And I'm like, then is this true? Wow, okay. Anyway, so let's move forward. Another interesting topic in your book is the connection you made between spiritual possession and gender. For example, let me read this, okay? And on page 117, scholars of African diasporic religions have long discussed the origin of the notion that women are more open to possession than men, and therefore this is the key word here, guys, holders of great spiritual power. This is dope. I want you to tell us, why is that? Why are women prone, right, to be spiritually possessed by the divine, by the law, by the spirits? What's going on here? What's the preference, female preference for possession?
Yeah, so when we think about, again, when we talk about the critical lens that I was trying to present in Haitian Vodou, there's been a number of scholars that have talked about, and I'm thinking about Laurent Matori, his work in Black Atlantic religion.
Yes.
Ruth Landis's work. There's a number of scholars who have talked about the overt biological supremacy that happens in African diasporic religions, and what it means, what we think socially about what it means to be a woman, and what we think socially about what it means to be a man, has implications in these religious traditions. So when it comes to women, there's a way that there is there's some understanding that because women are able to give birth, and they are more receivers. Again, this is the argument. They're more receivers in the sexual application, because I could also argue, have you been hooking up with me? Because I'm telling you, I'm not just giving or receiving, I'm also giving. So anyways, but
you're bad.
I am. So it's like, but again, I'm like, sometimes I'm like, when you read these notions, I'm like, geez, how boring. They probably just be having sex, just missionary, just like, that's it. Like, that's all you guys fucking do. Like, you ain't using toys, you ain't using nothing. Like, come on, but whatever. But anyways, scholarship. There is a way that they're seen as women as more receivers, more receptors, and because they have again classified, majority of women have wombs. I mean, no, that not all women have wombs or not able to give birth, but it's with the preconception of or understanding that because of that, that's why they're more receptive to having the spirit or being more sometimes even seen as spiritually stronger. That debate has or that understanding has major implications in African diasporic religions, African diasporic religions. And also it's been heavily contested and debated. What I was noticing is that the role of how patriarchy, thinking about like male dominance, male supremacy, has also impacted the ways that cis and queer men, more so cisgendered heterosexual males have also experienced Haitian Vodou. So much so that I've noticed that when it comes to like the range or how people are talking about like the types of possession practices that happen, they're mostly talking about women and queer men. And what is also interesting is that when it comes to like queer men, they're talking about queer men who are classified as like the bottom or like the ones that are receiving, and they don't do that for top queer men. But what's so funny is that there's no analysis on queer women, as like what if there's more queer women that are more mask aligned, or women that are more givers. They're not seen as there's no discussion on women because of the fact that you're just a woman. So again, do you see the nuances here? Like how, again, even for queer women, there's an erasure about how people are seeing their ideas. But again, it's always through the lens of men and the phallic representation. And so part of my argument was also trying to investigate, because of the ways that that gender and sexuality has been socially constructed, and the ways that impacts both male and females in our social constructions about what masculinity is and what femininity is. It has repercussions in the spiritual world, so much so that I argue there's a way that cisgender heterosexual men are not experiencing the fullness of Vodou because of the fact that they don't allow themselves to get taken over by more feminine spirits. And in my in the ceremonies I've seen, I've witnessed when cisgender heterosexual men get taken over by a more hyper feminine spirit, not Esli Danto. So when it comes to Esli Danto, although I've seen people like try to push Esli Danto away, but Esli Danto, if a cisgender heterosexual man does get taken over, it's seen as, okay, you know why? Because she's more wrathful, she's more angry, she's like, or when I say angry, like more robust. She's not doing a number of feminine emotions or like expressions of sensuality. But if a cisgender heterosexual man was taken over by a hyper feminine spirit like Esli Freda, people are now, then, like, again, what comes after the Vodou ceremony is over, people are questioning, like, how did you get that spirit? Umasisi? Are you okay? What's happening here? So there are implications to this statement. And again, when we think about the role of dismantling patriarchy, I'm also arguing about like how that is dismantling patriarchy can also dismantle that even in the religious tradition. That if people understand that there are social implications that structure religion, cultural implications that structure religion, homophobia that impacts religion, then we have to see that it also impacts how people are even getting possessed by the spirits as well. So again, if you're not, again, that's why I love about being a participant observer. I got a chance to watch watch what people are saying and watch what people are doing. And when people are saying that that everyone can get possessed, it's not really the case. I mean, again, there's some questions of like, okay, certain spirits can possess you. That's not the question. The point is that there is a ways that there's a gendering that happens in possession that allows for women, broadly speaking, to be more to be more possessed by spirits without thinking about the social and cultural ramifications and understandings of biology and the biological understandings of what it means to be a woman, and some of the problematics about that. Because again, when we think about womanhood and we think about also like manhood, it's very diverse and it's very expansive. And sometimes or a number of times, it could be, some people have like just trite and static understandings of masculinity and femininity that doesn't allow for as much play. And because of that, the ways that the spirits can even enter is a bit different.
So would you advise cisgender, heterosexual male, for example, to be more open to the spirits? Okay.
Yes. And I think that if there is a cisgender heterosexual man, I feel like that is listening to this conversation, they know what I'm talking about, because I've talked to a number of them about what I mean about for not only for themselves, about thinking about their own masculinity and how they present it, and how is their masculinity very, very rigid, whether or not they have been exclusionary to some queer men, and how they feel about their own their masculinity. But yes, I would say that there is an openness. There needs to be a more critical engagement between. And again, I know I might get some slack from this, but that's my stance, that there needs to be some more critical engagement when it comes to the openness from cisgender heterosexual men. And also, this is a bigger conversation about the role of patriarchy, about the role of toxic masculinity, and how that can also impact religious spaces. So if you're not open with the spirits, you're not going to be open even in the community. So again, all what we're seeing in the religious spaces has social, cultural ramifications. And I think that if one begins to be more open with the spirits, maybe, just maybe, that they can be more expansive in their understandings of themselves, of others. So again, I think there's different ways of coming out of dismantling patriarchy and misogyny and homophobia.
In other words, there are certain conceptions of manhood or masculinity can hinder the full disclosure of the spirit, right, to that individual. Also, defers the spiritual intimacy, right? The profound spiritual intimacy, right?
Yes. Yeah. I'm gonna make sure I write that down, because that was good. I'm glad you said that, because that is also one of the things I argue about. That it's lacking the spiritual intimacy.
Yeah.
So I had to write that down. I was like, yes.
Yeah, this is great. You do know we can talk for hours about this book, because this is great. But I know I have to let you go. But look, this book, although it's about Vodou and Vogue, I have two questions. I have a question about the cover of the book. I know the answer, but I wanted my audience to know. At the same time, who's that person?
So that's Mambo Mode. Kuzan Eziaku, because Kuzan Eziaku, that's the spirit of agriculture, if anyone wants to know. Kuzan Eziaku took over or possessed Mambo Mode, And so that's both. It's both.
Okay.
You know? And I love that picture. So you like that picture too?
Oh, I love it. Oh my gosh.
Can I just say
Oof.
that when I tell you, I was
Did
thinking
you
about
take this picture?
I did.
Wow.
Say that shit, Celucien. Yes, I did. Yeah, I told you I was a bad bitch. I told you, man. I told you, man. I thought about everything. Majority of the pictures are mine in this book.
Let me see while you're talking. Let's see if I can show the audience some of the amazing pictures here.
I love it.
Can you, is this clear? Can you see it?
We can see it. Mm-hmm.
Okay, let me show.
Yeah.
Yeah. Guys, this is what we're talking about.
You're doing a good job. Yeah. Yeah.
And then here.
Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, so the majority of pictures are mine. And then also I'm very grateful to I don't know if you know who Patrick Sylvain is, the poet and scholar. Okay.
Poet,
scholar. Yes, yes.
Literary critic.
Literary critic, exactly.
Yeah.
I was very grateful for him for sharing me pictures of Mama Mo in the ceremonies in the 90s. For because that way we can see the change over time with the type of growth that she's had in the community. So even though I was doing like more like the contemporary, like having his picture, I'm so grateful for to showcase the 90s, was able for us to think about like how she's grown and changed. And some things like not stay the same, but like she's been tweaking a bit more. You know,
and I tell you that leads me to my last question, right? So your book really focuses on your relationship, your friendship with this fascinating person, Mama Mo, whom you spend considerable time with her, in Haiti and the States. What have you learned from her? What are some qualities that you admire about Mama Mo,
I love that question. I love that question so much because it reflects back the care that you saw in the book and the care that I feel like you wanted to see that as well. You're like, is there care for the people who practice these religious traditions and the care for Haitian people? So your last question reflects that type of care. So I appreciate you asking that question. It's funny because I say some reckless shit to Mama Mode. I've called her, I mean, some of them are like, honorifics, but I've called her the Beyonce of Vodou. This woman is stylish. Like she's gonna come out because there's times where she's wearing the same dresses as everyone. And then there's times where she goes, I need you to know that I'm the Guo Mambo. So if everyone is wearing satin, she's wearing silk. Oh yes, that's the time I'm helping head wrap her head. You said what?
It's pretty.
It's so pretty.
Yeah, it's so pretty. Yeah.
Yeah. And our relationship has grown over time. And it was, again, this is where if there's any anthropologists that are listening to this, or people that are interested in ethnography in religion, I think that when we think about the role of trust, care, showing up, and being yourself, like, again, I have been me. And again, like I said, I've made mistakes. There's times we butted heads. You read that about the beach story.
And the money.
And the money. Bro, we didn't even get a chance to talk about that shit.
Because you were poor, as a grad student.
Sorry, continue. What did you say? Because
as a grad student.
Yes.
Grad students are poor.
Yes. Yes. Yo, every time I get a chance to talk about the beach story, I will always talk about that. Because they try to make me out to feel like I was Nigerian Drake. And I don't have Nigerian Drake money. And I was mad. Y'all should just read it. Because I was mad. And I knew it's also like it reminded me of the African diaspora. And I should have planned for that, like my mom does. Like every time she goes home to Nigeria, say that she needs $2,000. she will save up $5,000 because she knows that she has to come with something, and also she has to come with gifts. So she can't come empty-handed. Even if it's $2,000, she has to prepare for giving. So when Mama was telling like, oh, you only need is $200, $300, I should have taken the Nigerian emphasis to go double that shit. Whatever you think it is, double it. But whatever, I didn't know. But so again, I think that what I've taken away from her is that this woman is really kind. Something that everyone should know, like, sometimes, I'm going to say this, sometimes I think that the kindness, and she's talked about this, that she gets, people have tried to take advantage of her because of her kindness. And she's had to learn over time to guard herself, because sometimes she can be so open. And I think there's a type of people that you can be open to, but not just for everybody, because there are people that can try to walk over you. So she's done much more discerning. So I think that I've gotten more about how I could be more kind to people. Because I'm nice. I'm kind, but not nice. And even in my kindness, I'm still I go, why should I trust you? So I'm very skeptical of a lot of people. But then there's times through my relationship with her, I've given a little more pause. So although Momo has had to like be more, has been more watchful about her kindness, I think that the love that she has for people is very contagious. And there's sometimes I go, why are you like this? Like, why you are so nice? Why? Like, and I realize how, again, I'm not that nice. So I think I like that. And I think that Momo is quiet, but then also like you get to see her braggadociousness come out during ceremony. My Nigerianness does not allow me to be quiet, but I understand that as a powerful tactic. Like in terms of some people wait and then they go, they like branch, like, you know, they explode. And that's not me, but I appreciate that more by watching her. And I go, oh, okay, I see you. Everyone has their ways of showing out and showing off. So that I think that's cool.
Wow. I mean, you really make me want to meet that person, right?
Yeah.
Mood. Her kindness, her hospitality, the way she cares, loves, guides, heals, instructs the community.
Yeah. And I think that it's important to know that, again, I could have written about a number of practitioners. There's some practitioners I did want to write about, and through unfortunate circumstances, I wasn't able to. But when I talk about my interviews with the number of members in the Vodou home, some of the Vodou home that have left and gone to that Vodou hop to other spaces. One thing that, like, you know, there's ways that people have talked about her that, you know, they'll talk about what I went through, which is sometimes the what you need is a little bit more, you know, people, there's like some comments about like the way that she could be very particular about the things that she needs. And again, that just reminds me of just a leader. Like, if you think about, again, I think about Beyonce. Beyonce is very mindful and meticulous about the things that she needs for the ceremony. Again, that's why her ceremony is, that's why Beyonce's, what's it called? Her tours and events are very lavish, because she's very mindful about how things look. That's Mama Mo too. But what I've never heard someone that said that she wasn't kind or she wasn't fair. And I think that's something that's beautiful. And people have said again, people have not hold back to me, because they're like, I don't care. And people have said this, I don't care if you study her, you need to know this about her. And I'm like, cool, thank you. Because people, again, that also marks that people are showing their, are able to showcase and have trust in me, not to repeat some of the things that what their qualms were. But even with the qualms, there was never a moment where people were saying that she's not kind or she does not care. I think that's something to say about her level of care and intimacy. Because everyone has quirks, you know, everyone has leadership quirks. Okay, whatever. But you're not going to say that she's not going that she harmed you. You're not going to say that she didn't care about you. That you just can't. You can't. And I think that's the quality of Mambo Mode that I value the most. And I again, for myself, I hope that I can show a little bit of that. Again, it's not me and my own personality, but again, it's a very beautiful quality and trait for me to still remind myself to have and emulate for myself.
You know what? Given the history, the complex history of Vodouphobia in Haiti, in the States, I mean, everywhere in the world, I really appreciate the way you humanize Vodou practitioners. You show, okay, look, these individuals are people like us. You know, they just happen to embrace a tradition they prefer. That doesn't make them less human.
It doesn't make you less human. Yeah. She makes mistakes. She has a life. She got a job. She got kids. She got to feed her. She got to feed her kids. She's thinking about putting her kids to college. Like she's going, like, people are going through human experiences. And yes, I'm so glad you caught that. Like, again, I met nurses, janitors, doctors, lawyers, construction workers. Like, people have lives. They're living. And they love and serve the law. Yeah. You know.
Yeah, this is important. Yeah. Wow. Let's see, I've taken how much time? Maybe like 4 or 5 hours of your time today.
This was worth it. This was worth it.
Yeah.
This was worth it.
Wow. Tell us. I promise this is the last question. What are you working on? What's your last project? What are your current project?
Yeah. So it's so funny. If you'd have asked me that like right after I turned in the book, I would have been so pissed. I'd be like, I just got this done. It's like when the baby comes out, they're like, what's your next baby? Did you know what I just did to get this baby out of here? But now that I have some time and I've been watching the feedback feedback of my book, and there's a time I was just rereading my book again. I've been inspired by my own work. Let me make sure I say this. What I love about what I did is that not only did I take in the scholarship and understand the scholarship and make sure I was being in conversation with scholars, but also making sure that I go, where is my voice and my words into this? But I've listened to a number of scholars, people that have finished their books, one book, or they're on the third book. And some people will say, you know, I wish I would have spoken with more authority. I wish that I had more voice. I wish that I would have just done the things that made me happy instead of what other people made them happy. And I can proudly say that I have done what I needed to do in this book. And I moved with such rigor and joy. And it was both that have guided me. And again, I'm very appreciative of the scholars that have walked with me, that have held me. This shit is a lot. I was tired, stressed out. And then again, some of the conversations that you have, some of them were good, some of them not so good. The spirits will be mad at you. You gotta go, damn, I got in trouble by Esley Danto. She put a dagger to my face. What am I gonna do? So I had to deal with all that shit. And so, but I can lay my head down and go, I have done what I need to do. I've said the things I needed to say. I have held this religious tradition in such high regard, and I have opened it up, just like you caught, opened it up so we can see the intricacies, just the beauty, because messy can be is beautiful. The messiness about the religious tradition, and then the fun, the not so fun, the complexities about the religious tradition. So as I finished this book, I was thinking there were some things I didn't get a chance to talk about or think more through, because this book was really thinking about fashion. And this, you know, as a scholar, sometimes you veer off And luckily I have a wonderful developmental editor. Her name is Brianna Eaton. And she'll always go, what the fuck does this have to do about fashion? And I'm like, but I want to talk about things and I want to talk about this. And she goes, what the fuck does this have to do about fashion? So there was a way that I was thinking, when I was thinking about the ideas about womanhood and femininity, I was able to talk about gender and sexuality in a fluid way and think about both men and women. And I think that for the next book, because I was able to talk to a number of queer Black women, Black queer women about their relationship to the divine. I want a separate book that thinks specifically about Black queer women and their connections with the divine. So the next book, I already have the title. It's called Tell My Spirit. Tell My Spirit.
Zoran Hurston.
Yeah. So I said Tell My Spirit. So as an honor to her. Black queer women in Haitian Vodou. And I'm also thinking about not only just the female divinities, but then also female divinities in both also Benin and Nigeria as well. And some of the intricacies that's happening.
So a transatlantic connection here.
I'm trying. We'll see. We'll see if that ends up happening. But that's what I would like to do. So I'm thinking I'm trying to go, like, if I was able to stay in Haiti or do Haiti and Haiti diaspora, then I also think I want to be more imaginative about think about the Haitian Vodou deities that has survived and continued.
The Middle Passage, right?
Then think about that as well as the spirits that are in West Africa as well. It's ambitious. We'll see what happens. But again, I follow my passion and then also looking for the holes. So I've been writing. Already have like a chapter and a half, almost 2 chapters that like I just couldn't put in the book because it just couldn't fit. And so I'm glad that I didn't know that the book can inspire you to like go for something, to branch off. And people have said that, and it's cool to know that happened to me. So that's where I'm at right now.
Great. We can't wait to read your next book. We know it's going to be awesome, just like this one. Well, I'll tell you what, it's been a pleasure to talk to you about your work, Vodou and Vogue, fashion in Black Divinities, and in Haiti in the United States. Guys, seriously, go get a copy. I mean, look, you're not gonna put it down, all right? Thank you so much, Dr. Eziaku Nwokocha, for this wonderful time. I've taken almost 3 hours of your time. You are so kind, so generous to give me, I appreciate it.
No, I appreciate you, because this was fun. And again, to hear you read 2 chapters of the same over again.
I did.
Like, no, this is fun. This is fun.
I did.
Yeah.
Well, I hope you have a productive and safe semester at UM. And of course, we'll keep watching your work. And now we're gonna schedule our next interview for our next book when it comes out, whenever that comes out.
Are you Bobo? May the spirits watch over me again.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, you take good care. Thank you so much. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.